Yomim Teichel Matzahs. 6 days you should eat matzah. Of a Yom HaShvi, on the 7th day, Atzeres. Atzeres means to hesitate, to pause, to absorb. L'Hashem Elokecha for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for the Eibishter, Le'isasem Malacha, you shouldn't do any work. Now let me begin this class with the Nigle. The Gemara says that you have 2 different psukim. One pasuk says Shivas Yomim Teichlu Matzahs, you eat matzah for 7 days, and the other pasuk says Sheshes Yomim Teichlu Matzahs, for 6 days you eat matzah. So the Gemara asks the question: is it 6 or 7? So the psukim contradict each other. So then you have the klal that they bring, one of the 13 midas Shatein Nidreshes Behem is called Dovash Haya B'Chlol. V'Yotza Manaklo. L'lamed, l'lamed l'atma yotza, elo l'lamed l'klol kula yotza. When you have 2 psukim, and the psukim contradict one another. One gives a bigger measure, 7 days you should eat matzah, and the other pasuk gives a smaller measure, 6 days you should eat matzah. So you say that the second pasuk takes away 1 day from the first pasuk. Sheishes yom teichel matzah means you don't have to eat matzah on the 7th day. But then we say a rule that when Haya B'Chlol v'Yotza Min HaKlal, it was part of a rule, and it was removed from the rule, it removes the rule completely. In other words, you don't have to eat matzah Pesach at all. That's what the Gemara says. That because you have a klal, 7 days you should eat matzah. Then you have a Yotza Min HaKlal, you only have to eat matzah for 6 days. So the 7th day you don't have to eat matzah. So of course the question is, if you have to eat matzah 6 days, and you don't have to eat matzah 7th day, both psukim should have said Sheshes Yomim. Why does one pasuk say 6, one pasuk say 7? And the answer is, first the Torah tells you to eat matzah for 7 days and takes away 1 day. So whenever the Torah Shabbat, the Mikra does that, it gives you a klal in one place and diminishes the klal someplace else. We say Le'lamed al atzma yotza el lamed al klal kula. It eliminates the klal completely. In other words, from these 2 psukim, it comes out you never have to eat matzah. So the Gemara asks the question, so why do you eat matzah the first night? And the Gemara answers, there's a 3rd pasuk, Be'erev teichlu matzahs, the first night of Pesach you have to eat matzahs. And the Gemara says, Hadar kavei hakasuv chayver, or the Torah reestablishes a chayv. So, this is really, really, real strange, isn't it, right? You have a pasuk that says eat matzah for 7 days, a pasuk that says eat matzah for 6 days, a pasuk that says eat matzah for 1 night. So the pasuk which says to eat matzah for 7 days is diminished by the pasuk which says matzah for 6 days. And once the pasuk eliminates 1 day of matzah, we learn you don't have to eat matzah b'chlal gans Pesach, except for the first night. So of course the obvious question is, all the Torah has to do is say one pasuk, be'erev teichlu matzahs, problem solved. Just say the pasuk, eat matzah the first night, and the rest of Pesach, just leave it empty. Why do you have that pasuk that says it, and a pasuk that takes it away, and takes it away a little bit, and if you take it away even more, then you have to have a 3rd pasuk to bring it back. In other words, the whole thing seems inefficient. And I don't know if I'll be nigle, that's a kasha. That's the way the Torah works. You have psukim, and from the psukim you learn halachas. And this is the way the halacha works out. The bottom line is you eat matzah the first night, you don't have to eat matzah for 7 days, even though it says for 7 days you have to eat matzah. So there's a lot of Maamar Sheshes about this. And one of the ideas which has brought Maamar Sheshes is that the first night of Pesach matzah is chayva. You have to eat matzah. The rest of Pesach, the matzah is reshus. You don't have to eat matzah, but it's reshus. You're free to eat matzah. You're permitted to eat matzah. But it says in Chassidus that the reshus is higher than chayva. That means to say, it says in Chassidus that the matzah you volunteer to eat is a higher madrege than the matzahs you're obligated to eat. Because the whole concept of reshus, the whole concept of something being voluntary, Hashem is not telling you to do it, but you're free to do it, is higher than the idea of an obligation, the idea of chayv. Like you have the concept of tfilas arvis reshus. Davening ma'ariv is considered reshus. So it says in Chassidus that ma'ariv is reshus because it's higher than chayv. And there are many, many examples for this idea. One of the examples for this idea is the way we do with tefillin. So first of all, you have Rashi Tefillin and Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. So Rashi Tefillin, you make a bracha. Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin, you don't make a bracha. So it says the reason you don't make a bracha, so Api Halacha, the reason you make a bracha in Rashi Tefillin. You don't make a bracha in Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin is because Rashi Tefillin is the din is like Rashi. That you're supposed to, the sage of the Parsha is supposed to, like Rashi says. We do like Rabbeinu Tam for whatever reasons. And it's not only for halachic reasons, for nigla reasons, but it's also be'ikir for pneumistic reasons. Now in Kabbalah it's written that Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin is higher than Rashi's Tefillin. Rashi's Tefillin is called Moichen de Ema, and Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin is called Moichen de Abba. And because it's higher, you don't make a bracha on it. What's the pshat? And by the way, the same idea is also true in Shal Tefillin, Shal Yad, and Tefillin, Shal Rosh. That in some communities we make 2 brachas on Tefillin. We make only one. We make a bracha only on the Shal Yad. Laniach Tefillin. We don't make a bracha al mitzvahs Tefillin unless you make a hefsek. So it's explained in Chassidus, the idea that when a person makes a bracha, it says in Teirei and Bereishis, brachas are higher than mitzvahs. A mitzvah is godliness and atzilus. The bracha brings the godliness down to a lower world. But there's one rule about a bracha. The bracha is, that is, you can't make a bracha levatol. You can't make a bracha in vain. Which means to say that if you do a mitzvah, and along with the mitzvah you make the bracha, you are certain that what you're doing is going to be drawn down. If you have any doubt whether what you're doing is going to be drawn down, you can't make a bracha, because you can't make a bracha levatol. So it's explained in Chassidus, there are certain things that we cannot draw down. We cannot ascertain, we cannot guarantee, we cannot be sure that when we'll do it, we'll bring it down. But the Eibishter opens it up to us. He makes it possible for us. And when we do it, it comes down by itself. That means to say, we're not bringing it down, we're simply being opened up to it. And when we do it, it happens by itself. A bracha means I'm bringing it down. Things that are higher than bracha means I cannot bring it down, but I do it anyway, and then reshus, it's free. It's free from our end to do, it's free from the Eibishter then to bring down. Of course the Eibishter brings it down, but it's higher than bracha. And that's how we explain the Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin, that's why we explain Tefillin Shal Rosh. We don't make a bracha in such mitzvahs, because we cannot for sure guarantee that the light will come down. But we trust that when we do it, the Eibishter will bring it down on his own. And the same is true with matzah. After the first night of Pesach, we also eat matzah. There's a maimer in Reish Ayin Ches from the Rebbe Rashab, a Pesach Dika maimer, where he finishes the maimer with these words. Therefore, the minig is, I forgot the exact wording, because I haven't seen the maimer in many, many years, but it says to eat matzah every day. You eat matzah every day of Pesach. And eating matzah every day of Pesach is not just because you're hungry and you have to make a bracha meitzi. You're eating matzah because there's an inyan of eating matzah. But the inyan of eating matzah after the first night is the reshus. Hashem is not telling you to do it the first night. He's commanding you to eat the matzah. After the first night, He's not commanding you to eat the matzah. But you have seichel and you eat the matzah to bring down the inyan of matzah. So that's why you have to have 3 psukim. One part says eat matzah for 7 days. Because you're supposed to eat matzah for 7 days. But the matzah eat for 7 days is not supposed to be choiva, commanded by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It has to be for you to volunteer. So then you have to have a second pasuk, which is Yotza min haklal, to take away from the rule. So you'll know that even though one pasuk it says you should eat matzah for 7 days, because in the level of reshus you should eat matzah. But you want to know that it's not chayva, but it's only reshus. So there's a second pasuk which takes away the eating of matzah on the 7th day, and therefore it becomes called that all of the 7 days of matzah you have to eat matzah, but you have to eat matzah only al reshus. You don't eat matzah al chayva. And the first day you have to eat matzah al chayv. Now, to explain this a little bit, what does this mean? I have to eat matzah, I'm volunteering to eat matzah. Since, of course, there's a number of aspects to matzahs. But let's just focus on one. The concept of matzah is emunah. But in order for matzah to be emunah, the concept of matzah has to be bittul. It can't be chometz, it can't be gaiva, it can't be tam. Because in order for the faith to be pure, in order for the faith to be sincere, in order for the faith to be genuine, a person has to have complete bittul. So when it comes the first day Pesach, Hashem says you must eat matzah. Moreover, you know from the other Maimonides Chassidus that there's a concept of Leil Shemurim. And the first night you have to actually guard the matzah against becoming chometz, because we're still vulnerable to chometz, to gaiva. And Hashem says, this night I'm commanding you to eat matzah, so that the Yid should eat the bread of emunah, to bring to himself emunah on a level of chayv. After the first day, he's not commanding us to do it. But we eat it anyway. Because we want emunah. But the emunah which we bring down, or in other words, the bittul and the opposite of gaiva, which applies in the days after the first, is in the category of reshus. Hashem cannot command us to do it. Because it's not b'derech esarusa delatata esarusa delel. In other words, there's no guarantee that when we eat the matzah, we're going to bring down this level of emunah. But we eat the matzah anyway, and it's reshus. It's, so to speak, free. It's free from our end, and Kvayachal is free from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's end, that will bring down the emunah. And of course, we believe wholeheartedly that the emunah is brought down, that the bittul, the hepech hagaiva, is brought down, but it's on a level which is called reshus, which is higher than chayv. And therefore, the psukim makes sense. The psukim makes sense. Again, this is not a nigla into the pnimistic, it's a Chassidishe inyan, that the Torah tells you eat matzah for 7 days because you have to. But you have to know that the eating 7 days is not a mitzvah. Hashem is not commanding you. It's higher than a mitzvah. It's an eating from the shus. So therefore you have to have hoya b'chlol v'yotzam en haklol. So the pasuk of eating matzah the first night, this is an obligation. And the other two psukim are trying to tell you you should eat matzah, but you should know that the matzah you're eating is not a mandate, it's not a commandment, it's higher than a commandment, it's on the level of the shus. And the way the Torah communicates that message of matzah reshus is by those two psukim. So it's as if you were to say there's two concepts of matzah on Pesach. The matzah on Pesach, which is a chiyuv, it's a mitzvah to eat, because we need to have the commandment of bittul and emunah, because it's a level where you need, which is close enough to us, which is an ishtalshalos, where the Eibishter gives us mitzvahs, and that's ba'erav teichlu matzahs. And the other two psukim are teaching us the concept of matzah reshus. But the question still remains. What's the question that remains? Afilu im timtza leimer. Even if you're going to accept the line of reasoning that I have proposed, that ba'erav teichlu matzahs is the mitzvah of matzah, where it is a chiyuv, which is one of the tayag mitzvahs. And the other two psukim, shivas yom teichlu matzahs and sheshes yomim teichlu matzahs, are teaching us about matzahs reshus. But ha gufa kasha. Why is the yotzam and aklol the seventh day? What would happen if we would say shivas yom teichlu matzahs in one pasuk, and the other pasuk would say Schneur Yomim Teichlu Matzahs, or Shleisha Yomim Teichlu Matzahs, or Yomecha Teichlu Matzahs? Why does one pasuk say 7 days you eat matzah, and the other pasuk says 6 days you eat matzah, and the seventh day is Atzeres? And that's how we learn the Yotzam and Aklal Lamad Laklal Kulei. It could be in so many different ways. And this Maimid is answering this question. In effect, that even though the real truth of the matter is that all 7 days, besides for the first night, eating matzah is reshus, but the way we learn reshus is by saying in one pasuk 7 and one pasuk 6, because there's a very big difference between the matzah reshus of the 6th day and the matzah reshus of the 7th day. In other words, the first night Pesach is a chayv, the next 6 days is reshus, 7th day of Pesach is even a higher madrega of reshus. As you'll see in this maimed, the 2nd day of Pesach, and now I'm using my own words, you eat matzah without eating matzah, by fasting. He proposes that on Shvi Shal Pesach you don't have to eat, just like on Yom Kippur. But since there's a pasuk who says Shivas Yom Teichel Matzahs Kum Tachaisid, that when you don't eat matzah on the 7th day of Pesach, because it's Atzeres Lashem Alekecha Letasem Malacha, you have the emunah and the bittul that you would get from the matzah, that on the other 6 days you're eating it at matzah reshus, on the 7th day you're not eating it. And if I'm not incorrect, I didn't look this up, but if I'm not wrong, and it's been many years, I believe this is how the Mittler Rebbe says it in Shara Emunah, which is of course the Mittler Rebbe's Maamar on Pesach, which is very, very long. And mir dacht that the form that I'm proposing here is there, but I must be candid, I didn't look it up. So now all three psukim make perfect sense. One pasuk says the first day at matzah, that's a chayv. Then the other pasuk says 7 days at matzah, that's reshus. And the third pasuk says that in eating matzah reshus is itself two madregas. There's the 6 days where the matzah reshus is eating by eating, and the 7th day where the matzah reshus is eating by not eating, just like by shalosh shudas it says ayem lei, you're eating shalosh shudas by not eating. So this is the introduction to the Maamar. Sheshes Yomim Teichel Matzahs. For 6 days you have to eat matzah. Ubayom Shvi, and on the 7th day Atzeres. You pause, you hesitate, and you'll see later on in the Maamar that there's an argument to the effect that you shouldn't eat anything. because it's lavaya lekecha, it's exclusively for the Eibishter. Leitasa malachi, you shouldn't do any work. And of course, you remember from the Maamar that we learned last week, it shouldn't say leitasa malach. It should say kol meleches avoda leitasa. It should say that you're not allowed to do work associated with parnasa, but melechas eichel nefesh, eis asher ya'asa l'chol nefesh, hu levada ya'asa lachem. Right, Shabbos, you're not allowed to do any work. Yom Tiv, you're not allowed to do work for parnasa, but you're allowed to do work for eichel nefesh. This expression, leitasa malacha, belongs by Shabbos, and Yom Kippur it doesn't belong by Shvius Shel Pesach. And yet it says here, leitasa malacha, you're not allowed to do work, like you don't do work on Shabbos and Yom Kippur, because of the mile of Shvius Shel Pesach. So let's start the Maamar. Hine. Matzinu, we know, sheshleisha yomim tevim nekroi matzeres. There's 3 days of the year that are yomim tevim. That means days which is the greater revelation of godliness in the world, that have the name Atzeres. And they are Chag HaShavuos. Shavuos is called Atzeres in Chazal, not in the Pasuk, but in the Chazal, in the Gemara, it's called Atzeres. Zalman, the Rebbe gave us the Torah. And Shmini Atzeres, it says, B'yema Shmini Atzeres Tia Lochem in the Chumash, in Parshas Pinchas. Shuzman Simchas Torah, it's associated with the idea of Simchas Torah. And Shvi Shal Pesach, like you have in the Pasuk right in front of us, Sheshes Yomim Teichel Matzah, B'yema Shvi Atzeres. So all 3 of the Shalosh Regalim, Shavuos is in general called Atzeres, and Pesach and Sukkot, the last day of each Chag, of each Mayid, of each Yom Tov, is also called Atzeres. And now, of course, you know how Chassidus explains it. The word Atzeres has several translations. It means to pause, to hesitate, to stop, to pause. It means to hold back, and also means to absorb. And the concept is that you come to the Eibishter, to the Beis HaMikdash, for a Yom Tov. Godliness is revealed, and you're going to go home. The last day is an Atzeres. You stop, you pause, and you refrain yourself from going home. And what happens by pausing is when a person stops, everything that they have been doing is absorbed. It's part of human nature. The person is busy with doing many, many good things, doesn't have a time to take in what he's accomplishing and what he's doing until he stops. Shvi Shal Pesach, Atzeres of Shavuos, Shmini Atzeres, you pause, you stop. And as a consequence of this pause and this hesitation, there's an opportunity to absorb, to internalize. I remember the Rebbe once saying about Shmini Atzeres, this is a Pesach Maamar, but the Rebbe once said about Shmini Atzeres, that by the Rabbeim, Shmini Atzeres, the Rebbe said the expression, "Mekenen zogen by the Rabbeim chas v'shalom an inyan for natzvus." You can't say by the Rabbeim a concept of hepech, the opposite of joy. But by Shmini Atzeres and the Rabbeim gives a merer in zich. That's what the Rebbe's words. The Rabbeim were more introverted. Sukkot was Zman Simchas Torah, a time of great joy. Simchas Torah, of course, was the joy that has no limits. Simchas Torah. And Shmini Atzeres was not only less joy than Simchas Torah, it was actually less joy than the whole 7 days of Sukkot. It was a serious day. It was a Shabbos day because it's called Atzeres. So you have 3 days that are called Atzeres, and the Rebbe says on line 126, Hine, Matzinu, we know that line 128, V'godul masheneme b'shvi shel Pesach, and the idea that Shvi shel Pesach is a day of hesitation and holding back, and absorption is greater on Shvi Shal Pesach, more than it's written by the others. Because by Shmini Atzeres it says, Shmini Atzeres ti Elochem. By Shvi Shal Pesach it says, Atzeres Lashem Elokech. Shavuos it doesn't say in the Pasuk. Shavuos doesn't say B'chlal Lochem. So the Gemara brings the 2 opinions about the Rebbe Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. And the Gemara says that a kula alma meide as the batzeres beinen nami lachem. That on Shavuos you have to have lachem. So the pasuk doesn't say lachem, but the Gemara says lachem. So Shmini Atzeres, the Torah says lachem. Shavuos, the Gemara says lachem. And Shvi Shal Pesach, not the Gemara and not the pasuk say lachem. It's lashem lekach. Shenem abei lavaya lekecha, because by Shvi Shal Pesach it says that it's for the Eibishter, for lei lachem and not for you. And of course, on a technical level, on a nigla level, on a revealed level, lachem means that you celebrate Yom Tov by eating and drinking. And lashem lekecha means you celebrate Yom Tov by davening and learning. And of course, the practice is, the halacha is, chatzi lachem and chatzi lashem, a half a day. You go to shul and you daven and you learn, and a half a day you eat and feast, which is why Yom Tov you're not supposed to finish davening too late, so you can have a half a day also for lachem. But in the Torah, it doesn't say lachem by Shvi Pesach. It says it by Shmini Atzeres, and the Gemara learns it also by Shavuos. Shesh behem chatzel lavaya v'chatzel lachem. By Shavuos, and I guess also by Shmini Atzeres, it's half for you and half for the Eibishter. Ki im kulei lavaya. Shvi Pesach belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu completely, and here the Rebbe adds one more word: v'yem kriyas yamsuf. This concept that Shvi Pesach is kulei lavaya is entirely for the Eibishter is connected to the fact that Shvi Pesach has to do with the splitting of the Yamsuf. So the Maamar will now explain kriyas yamsuf. And in explaining Kriyas Yamsuf, the idea, the significance of the splitting of the sea, the Maamar wants to reveal, the Maamar wants to help us understand why this date, the date of Kriyas Yamsuf, is associated with Kulil Hashem entirely for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, let me say something that I've said many times over the years, in these classes, of course. When you read the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus, so there are many different things that are going on, obviously, including many, many miracles. There's a lot of miracles. First of all, you had the miracles that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to perform for the Jewish people. Then you have the miracles that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to perform for Pari. Then you have the miracles of the 10 Makkos. And then you have the miracles which comes after the 10 Makkos. So, the way it works, and I'm generalizing now, not going into specifics, there's two things here. One thing is a miracle, and the other is the revelation of God, Hashem showing Himself. The difference between a miracle and Hashem showing Himself is, a miracle means Hashem breaks nature to impress on the world that He's a balabas. Hashem breaks nature so that the goy, the mitzi, should be shaken and let a Jew go, and so on. But in addition to the concept of a miracle, there's also a concept of Hashem revealing Himself. And the concept of Hashem revealing Himself is not about a miracle, it's not about nature being broken. It's not about a Gentile, a non-Jew listening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's about bringing Hashem into this world. Because bringing Hashem into this world has to do with the kavanah of Nisava HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Liyas Leyes Barech Dira B'Tachteina, bringing Hashem into this world, or making the Eibishter a home in this world. And it's a different category of miracle. It's a higher category of miracle. It's a category of miracle which reveals the koyach of the Eibishter for the purposes of changing the world. So there's many, many miracles. And there's 4 steps, to the concept of a miracle which occurred, but its primary role was not to perform a miracle to have a certain effect, but its primary role was simply to reveal the Eibishter in this world, to bring about the ultimate Dira B'Tachtenim. And those 4 events were Makas B'Cheres, midnight, when it says in Chassidishe, based on Chazal, Noguf leMitzrayim v'Rafa leYisrael, that in one act Hashem punished Mitzrayim, and He healed and He cured the Jewish people. The idea of 2 opposites, Noguf v'Rafa, comes from the Keich Ein Sof, Nimna Nimnois. That was midnight. The second event was midday, Be'etzam Hayom Hazeh, 12 o'clock midday. The Jewish people left Mitzrayim, like the Pasuk says, Tzivas Hashem Monara Mitzrayim. And it was Be'etzam Hayom, in the middle of the day, and the Eibishter dared the Mitzrayim to stop them, and they couldn't. And of course, then you had the great miracle of Vistach. Mishareisam Tzerureis al Simleisam al Shichmam. They carried the dough, the unbaked dough, on their shoulders, and it baked in the sun. And Lehispik B'Tzekas Avasenu Lahachmitz. The dough of our ancestors did not have an opportunity to become chometz because Nigla Leim, the Eibishter revealed Himself. And when the Eibishter was revealed, there was a Gili Alakus, and it affected a bittul in the world. And it affected a bittul in the dough that it became matzah and not chometz. That was the second time. And the third time was Shvi Pesach, which B'Pashtus was in the morning. Not in the middle of the night, but not in the middle of the day, but early in the morning. And the Shmiras HaBeikeh, the Eibishter split the Yamsuf. And when the Eibishter split the sea, there was an incredible revelation of godliness. And the Eibishter had many, many other ways to get the Egyptians out of the Jewish people's lives. And the splitting of the Yamsuf was not to save the Jewish people from Mitzrayim, it was to reveal Hashem in the world. And like we all know, the Rebbe Tzach gekocht in this idea of Heim Hikiruhu Tchila. That when the sea split, the children, the babies, who were born Tachas Atapuach and so on, pointed to the heaven, Zeh Keli Van Veyu, because the Eibishter Himself had provided them with milk and honey when their mothers would deliver them in the fields and leave them there, and the earth would swallow them, and so on. And of course, the fourth was the event of Matan Torah, when the Eibush gave us a Torah, 50 days later, whatever it is, also early in the morning, on Vav Zayin Sivan, as the Gemara brings. So these four events were not miracles. They were demonstrations of how the world and God are one. Makas B'Cheres, Yitzias Mitzrayim, Kriyas Yamsef, and Matan Torah. So the Rebbe says Shvi Shal Pesach is associated with one of those events. And that's the Taich Atzeres Lavaya Lekach. Because what happened when the seventh day of Pesach came, and early in the morning, the Eibush split the sea. Of course, it saved the Jewish people from the Egyptians, and it drowned the Egyptians, and the Jewish people had so much wealth to collect and to gather, and the Bizas Hayam was greater than the Bizas that they had in Mitzrayim, and they were lazy to go, and Moshe Rabbeinu slapped them away. These all things are all true. But beneath all of that, there's something even deeper and something even higher, and that is that when the Eibush split the Yamsuf, he split all the heavens, and you saw till Atzamas and Moshe, Tzav Baruch Hu, all the Yamim, all of the coverings were removed, and you could see to the highest Madregas, and this was the preparation for Matan Torah weeks later at Har Sinai. So the Rebbe says on line 131, "V'gedei lahoisa bizas hayam v'chol." We just made the point that Kriyas Yamsuf was not about a miracle of saving the Jewish people from the Egyptians, but rather revealing the Eibishter in this world. The effect of this revelation was that the Jewish people collected spoils, plunder. So the Rebbe says, "Sho'inyan Allah's nitzutzin v'chuli," which raised up sparks, like we know it says in Kabbalah, right? I think the Mesilas Yesharim says it, that b'shalach parei es ha'am, that he sent along the Tzitza Kedusha that the Jewish people had left behind, because he didn't want asu'uha kimitzuda shein badagon or kimitzula shein badagim. They took away every single spark from Mitzrayim, and the few sparks that were left behind, Pari sent along with them, and that's the Taich halos nitzutz, that they collected wealth at the Yamsuf, elevating the sparks of Egypt. And then it says, the Jewish people, even the maidservants, saw at Yamsuf more than the greatest of the prophets were able to see, because the revelation at Kriyas Yamsuf was in a much higher madrega, the madrega of Nevuah. And then it also says about Kriyas Yamsuf, Kochem Azri Esav, Arechi Tegaltem Le'Efrayim. Kochem Azri Esav, the Eibishter raised us up when he split the sea on his reyes, on his arms, on his shoulders, and the Kemashal Latinik, like a little child. She'eini Yachal Lidas Le'Meracha, he cannot see far away. Ve'egbiye Aviv Lidas, his father lifts him up, so he should be able to see. When the Eibush split the sea, and they joined together, Amadis Kasi and Amadis Gali, as I'm going to explain. Momentarily, the Jewish people saw further even than the greatest Nevi'im. So this is Kriyas Yamsuf. Shvi Shal Pesach is the Eibush Yamsuf split. How this ties into the Matzah situation and to the Atzeres Hashem Alakecha, we'll see later in the Maimir. But at the moment, we're learning about Kriyas Yamsuf. And Shvi Shal Pesach is connected to Kriyas Yamsuf. And what happened when the Eibush split the sea? The Eibush allowed us to see. He raised us up. We should be able to see much farther than we were able to see otherwise. So let's first read it inside. Line 134, V'hinei. See if it says in the Pasuk, Ad Yavar Amcha Deshem, Ad Yavar Amzu Kanisa. So there's a Pasuk which says in the Az Yasher, Ad Yavar, until they will pass through your nation Havaya, Ad Yavar, until they will pass through Amzu, this people, Kanisa, that you made a kinyan. So it's brought in Chassidus. You also have a taka in the Shadamur for the Mitler Rebbe. That by the first Ad Yavar it says Havaya. But the second Ad Yavar it doesn't say Havaya. Because the first Ad Yavar means you're going over Shem Havaya. And the second Ad Yavar is even higher than that. So the two Ad Yavars is going over Shem Havaya and even going over something else. And as you'll see soon, this goes on the Yossi Love. Line 135, nearly Yossi Ksiv, it says about Mashiach. Hey, nif yadei ala nor. The Eibush will raise his head over the Rabbi Yom. Bayom means with the koyach, ruchay of his spirit. Ve'ikol lezayin acholim is going to split the river into 7 streams. And then it says v'hidrech banolim, the Jewish people are going to walk through the river with their shoes. Uksiv basrei, it says subsequently, Eit chavayike nafta v'yom Mashiach is going to come. We're going to save Amma v'yemahu. On that they were going to say thank you for being severe with us. Yoshev Abcha, take back your anger at Nachamin and bring us a consolation. We'll go back to this pasuk later on. Now go to line 138. Uksiv, and the Torah tells us, just like when the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, they were incredible miracles. Similarly, when Mashiach is going to come, there's going to be a in a place. Hashem is going to show us incredible wonders. The Hainu translates the Alter Rebbe, the Kmei Sha'ov B'nei Yisrael, just as the Yidden crossed over. Ba'alei Samim Mitzrayim, and their ascent from the land of Egypt. Esmei Yamsuf, the waters of the Yamsuf. Shu Seif, the Kol Dargim, which is Malchus of Atzilus, the lowest level of Atzilus. Cain, similarly, Yossi, love when Mashiach comes. Yavru as Hanahar, they're going to pass over the river. Liyais Bebechinas, Even Hanahar, to cross over the river to the other side. And you'll see later on, the river is Bina, on the other side is Choch. When she calls, it says in the Pasuk, Even Hanahar, Yashua V'seich, and Mayam Davram, Yitzhak and Yankim, Even Hanahar, on the other side of the river. And what's on the other side of the river? The river comes from Eden. And Eiver Anar means reaching Eden itself. V'yadua, it is known, she'Eden hu bechinas Chochma. Eden is the level of Chochma. V'zeu Chochma res anel du bechinas Riyah. Chochma is the level of Riyah. V'nar ha'yetze me'Eden hu bechinas Bina. The river which comes from Eden is the level of Bina. Shu bechinas Shmiya. V'havana, yet you hear and you understand b'hizbonanus, in contemplation, b'gidulasa yizbarach, and the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when the Eibush split the sea, then he was splitting the Yam, or the Eibush is going to split. When Mashiach comes, he's going to split the Nahar, the river. That basically this is the difference between Malchus and Bina. V'hinei, 145 now. Yud, Yamsuf, Nigzal, Yud Beit Gzarim. The sea, the Yam, the ocean, was split into 12 divisions, which is a minion. Shiftei B'nei Yisrael goes into 12 tribes of the Jewish people. K'diksiv, as the Pasuk says, L'geis, the Yamsuf, the Gzarim, Hashem divided the Yamsuf into divisions. Kil Yelam Chasti, B'chtei Shekol, Shevet, each individual Shevet. Bim Silah, say, Yechavin will have its own path, its own kavana. Kol Chad Lefum Shiur, each one according to his Shir. And of course, in Maamar Sheshes it's brought out the number 12 corresponds to the Yud Beis Boker of Elam HaBriya. The 12 goes on the divisions between Atzilus and Briya. Well, also, when Mashiach comes, V'yikol L'zayin Echol, Hashem is going to split the Nahar, which is Bina, into 7, which is a much higher Madreya. It doesn't go on the 12 that correspond to the 12 Shvatim, but it goes on the 7, which goes on the 7 Oves and the Imois, Bechin Zayin Reim, Gimel Oves, Nal the Imois, the 3 mothers, fathers, and the 4 mothers. Okay, I've done enough reading. Now let's stop. And let's converse. When Yidden left Mitzrayim, Hashem split the water. When Mashiach is going to come, Hashem is going to split the water. What's the difference between the splitting of the water when the Yidden left Mitzrayim and the splitting of the water when Mashiach is going to come? So the first difference is the splitting of the water when Yidden left Mitzrayim was called Yam. Yam means the ocean, and really Yam means a lake. Yam means a bowl of water that sits in one place. The ocean happens to be a bowl which could be 8,000 miles across or 6,000 miles across, but it's a big basin. The water sits in it. That's what the word Yam is. The Great Lakes are also called Yamim. You have a little pool of water. It's also a Yam. It's water that's a mikvah mayim. Gathered water is a Yam. And when Mashiach comes, Hashem is not going to split the Yam, the ocean, the lake. He's going to split the Nahar, which is the river. That's the first difference. The second difference is that by Yam Suf, it was divided up into 12, and by Mashiach, it's going to be divided up into 7. And of course, there is an enormous amount of Chassidus that analyzes these ideas and to understand, first of all, the similarity between Kriyas Yam Suf and Bekiyas HaNahar. And second of all, the differences between Kriyas Yamsuf, which is 12, and Bekiyas Anar, which is 7, Malchus and Bina, and so on. So let's talk it over, okay? First of all, from a technical note, how does it work? There's an ocean that holds water. And in the ocean, the water sits still. And the ocean's water is salty. It's not living, right? It's salty water. The waters from the ocean sink into the ground underneath the ocean, and the sand purifies the water, takes out the salt, And you have subterranean waters. You have waters beneath the ground, which is called the Tehoim, and so on, the subterranean waters. And these waters, which initially came from the ocean, that are purified in the sand, and it comes, seeps beneath the ocean and becomes sweet water again, because it's been the salt has been taken out of it, emerges in springs, in mayones, in fountains. That you have places in the world where you have little holes and water is rising up underneath the earth. And of course the water is rising up because there's pressure pushing the water upwards. We call this a mayon, a fountain. And the mayones are little trickles, the little tiny trickles of water. But the mayones, which are little tiny trickle of water, one thing that you can't deny is that you can't stop them. The water, when the ground pushes, if you cover it up here, it comes out someplace like this. You can't stop it, because the water underneath the ground is pushing. And water under the ground is called mayim shein lehem sof, infinite waters. And the waters, the teim, which are being pushed up by the teim ha'atzmi, cannot be stopped. It's going to come out. So there's little tiny trickles. They seem harmless, they seem benign, they seem like not such a big deal. But when you appreciate there's no way to stop them, you understand that these tiny little trickles are going to amount to something much, much larger. So what happens? You have a trickle here and a trickle there, and there's little streams. And slowly the waters collect. And they start to collect and go down from a high place to a low place. They become larger and larger bodies until they become a river. And a raging river, a river that can rip away that can rip away rocks and create chasms in the ground because of the force of the water carrying the water from the mountains to the sea. It's called a nahar, a river, which is very, very powerful. And it's moving. The word nahar means to run from one place to another. These waters, these rivers will later divide into tributaries, into thinner streams, which are called nachalim, streams. And kol ha-nachalim helchem al hayam, and all of these little streams that end up in the ocean. So you have a system of aquifer, a system of water. The water comes from under the ground up in little fountains, which according to Kabbalah is chachma. It makes its way into rivers, which according to Kabbalah is bina. It divides itself up into streams, the nachalim, which is the 6 midas, and it makes its way into the ocean, the yam, which is malchus, and then it seeps underneath the ground into the sound, and it becomes purified, and the cycle repeats itself over and over and over again. This is a concept for, like I said, it says in the Shara Amunah from the Mitler Rebbe. This idea is explained by Arichas Gedoyla, the Mitler Rebbe. I'm giving you a very concise version of it. So now that you understand the system, let's talk about each idea specifically. The ocean holds water. The yam holds water. And the concept of the yam holding water is that it's not letting the water out. Which means to say that if you have a bowl and you're holding water and you're underneath it, the water doesn't reach you. If water is running and you collect it and you hold it, so for the one above, the water is being contained, but from the one below, the water is not reaching. That's the concept of a yam. The concept of an ocean is it holds the water. And by holding the water, it's not available to the yabosh, it's not available to the next world, it's not available to the dry land. So the end of every world is Malchus. And Malchus of Atzilus holds all the light of the world of Atzilus. For example, so that Elam Abriya doesn't get the richness, doesn't get the life, doesn't get the vibrancy, doesn't get the Mayim Chayim of Elam Atzilus, because Malchus holds it. And the lower world gets something much, much less. So the way you look at a yam, at an ocean, which is really, like I said, a bowl that holds water still, a basin, a lake, is for the higher world, it's a very good thing. It's preserving the water. But for the lower world, it's covering it over. So what's the touch Kriyas Yamsuf? You're splitting the sea. Kriyas Yamsuf means that instead of the yam holding the water and not allowing it to descend to the next world, the yam is split and the waters come into the next world. That's the touch Kriyas Yamsuf. The waters which are being held by the yam are split, So instead of the Yam holding the water and preventing it and going it to the next world, it transfers to the next world. So in the place of Helam, you have Gila. Instead of concealment, you have revelation. How is this understood in more ruchniistic terms? How is it understood in more mystical terms, in more spiritual terms? In more mystical terms, in more spiritual terms, it's understood as follows. There are two levels. One is called machshava, and the other is called dibur. One is called thought, and the other one is called speech. What's the difference between thought and speech? The difference between thought and speech is thought is how you think for yourself, and speech is how you speak to somebody else. And when you speak to somebody else, there's a number of rules. The first rule is speaking to somebody else is only useful if the somebody else gets it. If you say something to somebody else and the other person doesn't understand it, maybe he doesn't understand it because it's too profound, you haven't said anything. Speech is defined by the recipient, by the makabel. The other person gets it. In addition, you can only say one word at a time. You can think many words, but you can only speak one word at a time. And you can only communicate to the recipient what the recipient is able to receive. So when Hashem creates the world, He creates the world through speech. What's the concept of speech? That the world is created by getting a limited amount of light and life and energy that the world is able to receive. And the world is created by having 10 utterances as opposed to one utterance. That means to say the energy that the Eibishter gives to the various aspects of the creation are divided. Each one is separate, just like speech. You can only say one thing at a time. What facilitates dibur, the yam? That fact that the higher world holds the thought within itself, so that what comes to the next world is only the speech, and it doesn't have the integrity, it doesn't have the depth, it doesn't have the intensity of the thought. So the Eibishter normally governs his world, he governs it only through speech. And the basis for the speech is because the thought, Kvayachal, the Eibishter holds back. So what's the pshat Kriyas Yamsuf? Kriyas Yamsuf means that it was revealed to the lower world, not just the creation on the level of speech, it was revealed to the lower world, the creation on the level of thought. That not only are they getting Yabasha, dry land, one word at a time, and one creation at a time, and in a limited way, but they're getting the entire Yam. The thought Kvayachal of the Eibishter, which is infinite, of course, compared to Hashem's speech, which is the source of the Dibur, is revealed in the lower world. So Kriyas Yamsuf, physically, the Yidden were running away from Egypt. They didn't know where to go. Hashem says, jump into the sea. They jumped. The sea split. They saved themselves. Spiritually, what happened? Hashem allowed that in the world, which is normally a world of Almadis Galia, that means a world created by words of speech, which are separate from Hashem and separate from one another, were deluged, were inundated, were filled with the, so to speak, the waters of Hashem's thought, so that the creation experienced the godliness which is higher than the creation, and the creation also experienced the unity in a world which is otherwise disparate. So Kriyas Yamsuf is a very, very significant event. In the standard language of Chassidus, Kriyas Yamsuf was the fusion of the hidden world and the revealed world. The hidden world which holds back, so that the revealed world should be divided and separate and limited, is broken. That in the revealed world, the hidden idea is also revealed, which means if you could imagine thinking something in your head and being able to tell to somebody else without any kind of compromise, just exactly what you think to communicate to that other person, and that other person will correctly get exactly what you're thinking, that's Kriyas Yamsuf. The way the creation happened is Hashem thinks about creating the world, but the world only has what his spoken words communicated, not the thought. Kriyas Yamsuf violated that world, and in the lower world, the revelation of Machshav. That's Kriyas Yamsuf. So in plain English, Yam represents Tzimtzum to the lower, and the way Yam represents Tzimtzum to the lower is because it holds it back. The lower world doesn't get it. Kriyas Yamsuf represents that the Yam held back, it communicates, and there's a flooding, there's a fusion of Hashem's speech with the energy and the light and the life of Hashem's thought, that in the lower world you can experience the godliness of how the world was part of the Eibishter's thought. That's Kriyas Yamsuf. So again, the Yam represents a certain hiding, and Kriyas Yamsuf means removing that concealment. Mashiach is going to come, there's going to be B'kiyas Hanah, the river is going to split. Now every person understands physically that you cannot compare a river to a sea. The oceans are thousands of miles wide, and the largest rivers in the world, even if they run thousands of miles, don't have nearly the volume of water. You can't compare an ocean to a river. But that's how it is physically. According to Kabbalah, a river is higher than a yam. Why? Because a yam holds. And the whole concept of holding is I keep it to myself and I don't let you get it. A nahar runs. A river is exactly the opposite. A river gives. And gives with an incredible amount of force. That it rips out the boulders and the clay on the sides of the river and expands the river and deepens the river so that the flow should be more forceful and more energetic with more water and so on. So a river is the opposite of a yam, of a lake, of a basin, of a sea. Because an ocean hides by keeping it for itself. The river doesn't hide. The river doesn't keep itself. The river flows with an incredible force from one place to another place. So the question becomes, what's the correlation? We understand that the yam hides and Kriyas Yam Suf reveals. But the river isn't hiding, the river is revealing. And the river is revealing what's the significance of splitting the river to reveal what's on the other side of the river. The river itself is revealing. And of course the answer to this question is that the river is Bina. What does Bina mean? Understanding. If you could imagine it in these words, Hashem creates the world through speech. So all the world has is His words. Then He splits the sea that the worlds also have the Yebishter's thoughts, which is much, much higher. Kriyas Yamsuf, the Nahar, reveals not just what Hashem is speaking, what Hashem is thinking, but in quotes what Hashem understands. The tam, the seichel, the wisdom, the reason behind the creation itself. But Bina is a concealment. Bina is a concealment. Understanding is a concealment. Why is understanding a concealment? Because understanding, Bina, covers over Chokhmah. Chokhmah is a little trickle. Bina is a huge river. But the river of Bina is a river of understanding. And the trickle of Chokhmah is a trickle of intuition, of Riyah, of clarity, like as if you can see. And all of the understanding of Bina is denying that. What does that mean? Imagine you understand godliness very, very well. Understood. You're a big philosopher. And you were very, very bright. And you learned all the Hakira and all the Kabbalah and all the Chassidus, and you understood godliness incredibly well. Is it possible that there should be something wrong with your emunah? Is it possible? And the answer is absolutely. Because you can intellectualize about HaKadosh Baruch Hu completely and make HaKadosh Baruch Hu into a concept that's good for a lecture, it's good for a speech, it's good for a parnasa, but it's not what I really am. But that idea that you can be brilliant and understand so much and have an issue with emunah is only true if you only understand. But if behind that understanding there is an intuition, there is a chokhmah, there is a riyah, you have a clarity about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that you see Him, against chokhmah there is no klipa. Yemusu v'lei b'chokhmah. And by Bina it says, Mina dinin misar. So Bina is so generous. Bina is much greater than Malchus. So mystically the river is much higher than the sea. The sea collects and holds the water into itself. The river gives. But the river's giving is also a concealment. Just like the sea's holding is a concealment, the river's giving is a concealment, but it's a different kind of concealment. The river holds, the sea holds and doesn't give anything. The river gives the givable, it gives an understanding. The idea that behind that understanding there is a certain sensitivity, intuition, called chokhmah, which is the concept of Re'iyah, the Bina covers over. So just like the sea hides from the lower worlds the Eibishter's thought, the river hides from the lower worlds the Eibishter's clarity, which is called Re'iyah, the level of intuition. So even though Bina and the river of La'asid Lavai is so raging and so powerful and so rich, it's the best philosopher in the world. Philosophy also covers over the Eibishter. Not because there's something wrong with the philosophy, because understanding the Eibishter is very different than sensing his presence really. And therefore, just like there's Kriyas Yamsuf, there's Bekiyas HaNahar. But the Bekiyas HaNahar is not breaking the fact that the waters are being concealed from you. No. Bekiyas HaNahar means breaking the fact that the waters are being revealed to you. Because you don't want to get the revealed waters. You want to get the mystery, you want to get the secret, you want to get the subtlety, which is called Chokhmah, which is hidden behind it. So Kriyas Yamsuf means the Yam doesn't let you see, and Kriyas Yamsuf allows you to see. And Bekiyas HaNahar means the Nar is raging with information, and you want to crack the storm of information, the storm of Seichel, of Bina, of understanding, to access the Eira Re'iyah, which is behind it, which is a little trickle, Keld Mamadaka. But that's where the Eibishter is. So Chassidus says that Yidden left Egypt, Yidden left Mitzrayim. So I said to you earlier that there were many, many miracles. And in addition, there were 4 events which did not constitute a miracle, but to the contrary, they constituted the revelation of godliness, which is setting up Matan Torah, which is the ultimate revelation of godliness. But then it was Kriyas Hayam. And in technical language, the barrier between Machshava and Diba was broken, that in the Elam HaDiba you can have the Erev Elam HaMachshava. The barrier between speech and thought was broken, and in the world of speech you can have the level of thought. When Mashiach comes, there's going to also be a barrier broken, but it's the barrier of Bina, of understanding, being broken to reveal the intuition, the clarity of vision, which is associated with the Riyah, with the Inach Chochmah. And that's what the Rebbe is saying here in this Maamar, that there's 2 Ad Yavers, you're crossing over 2 things. The first crossing over was crossing over from Dibur to Machshava, from below the sea, breaking the sea. And the second is from Bina to Chokhmah, cracking the river. And this, of course, is the explanation for why, by Yetzias Mitzrayim, the sea split into 12 parts. Because 12 represents the division in El Mabriya from Atzilas. Masha'enkin, the splitting of the river, which is going to be Yossi Love, is divided up into 7 parts. It's the way Bina is revealed in the 7 midas of Atzilas, which is a much higher madrega. And that's what the Rebbe is trying to say here. So the Rebbe now continues and he says, Vihine, I'm on line 150. Ata nowadays, Bizman da'achshav. Currently, no one's ever seen the other side of the river. In other words, we'd be happy to see the other side of the sea, the Yam. The world we live in is a world of Dibur. Kriyas Yamsuf allows us to experience the world of Machshava. Higher than that, Machshava, there is the concept of Nahar, which is Bina, but Eiver HaNahar, the other side of the river, which goes on Chokhmah, the quiet, subtle depth, which is clear, like as if you could see. Godliness is covered over. I will also love when Mashiach comes. The Torah tells us, Arenu niflo, as Hashem is going to show us wonders. Arenu bebechinas riyah. Now we'll be able to see, because Bina is Shmiya and Chochmah is riyah. Vezehu, and that's why we say, Eit chad Hashem ki anaftabi. Just like when Yidden left Egypt, they went through the Kura Barzel, the melting pot, the refinery of being in Egypt, that made them vessels to be able to receive the Gili of Machshava. By Kriyas Yamsuf and Matan Torah, La'asid Love, will have gone through 2,000 years of Galus. We thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ki Naftabi, translates to Rebbe, Hainu, Yesurim, Kaishi, Shibud, Parnasa, the suffering and the hardship and the slavery to support our families. For Lachain, as a consequence of all of this purging, Yoshiv Abchot and Achamein, Hashem's anger is reversed, and we're consoled. Shal Yedei Shesavalnu Ha'eni V'Adechet. Because we suffered poverty and difficulty in Niskila B'chinas as Galus, we reveal a higher madrege. What's the higher madrege? B'chinas Beiver HaNahar now, the opposite of the river. That Yidden see Chokhmah. When Mashiach is going to come, we're going to see Chokhmah. So now the Rebbe says, Shvi Shal Pesach is connected to Kriyas Yamsuf. But he asserts that Shvi Shal Pesach is not only connected to Kriyas Yamsuf, but that Shvi Shal Pesach is connected also to Bekiyas HaNahar. In other words, that the day of the 7th day of Pesach represents breaking the separation from the lower world and the higher world, that the godliness of the higher world should be revealed in the lower world. And I'm just speaking now out loud. The Maamar doesn't say this. We, of course, have 2 days of Yom Tov. Yom Tov Sheni Shal Goliath, Shvi Shal Pesach, and Achan Shal Pesach. And you probably are aware that Rebbe said once in the earlier years, in the very beginning of the Nesias, the Rebbe said, it was the afternoon, it was dusk, Shvi Shal Pesach going into Achan Shal Pesach. So the Rebbe said the following: Shvi Shal Pesach is Moshe Rabbeinu's tog, Achan Shal Pesach is Mashiach's tog. Shvi Shal Pesach is the day of Moshe Rabbeinu, who split the sea originally. Achan Shal Pesach, the last day of Pesach, is Mashiach's day, like you know the Torah for the Tzemach Tzedek. At the beginning of Pesach has to do with the first Geula, and the end of Pesach has to do with the final Geula. So then the Rebbe said, Al Kol Ponim is and the Rabbi the fine Yidden. They're both wonderful Jews. So the Rebbe said not to waste time. My point is that Shvi Shal Pesach and Achal Shal Pesach are Yom Tov Sheni Shal Goliath. They're 2 consecutive days connected to the idea of splitting. The splitting of the Yam and the splitting of the Nahar, which is going to happen when Mashiach comes. So when the Pasuk says, V'yemesh Mini Atzeres, it includes both. It includes the splitting of the Yamsuf, which happened in the times that Yidden left Mitzrayim, and the B'kiyas HaNar, which is going to happen when Mashiach comes. And therefore the Rebbe says, I'm on line 154 now, V'zehu, and this is the Pshat. Sheshes Yomim Teichel Matzes, that you eat matzah only for 6 days. V'lei Zayin Yom, not the 7th day, because the 7th day, Shvi Shal Pesach, is a remes for the Yossi Lavi, and the remes for the Yossi Lavi of Shvi Shal Pesach is higher than eating. It's not fasting. It's like not fasting Yom Kippur and not eating Shalosh Shudas. It's above eating. This pasuk speaks about Mashiach is going to come. The 7th day Yihye will be Atzeres Lavaya Lekecha, day to hesitate, to pause, to hold back, to absorb. Lavaya Lekecha, and I'm assuming Havaya Lekecha means Bina and Chochma. That Bechinas Eved HaNohar, that you cross to the opposite side of the river, where you go past Bina, past understanding, and you reach Hayetze Me'eden, which comes forward from Eden, and you reach Eden itself, which is Chochma and Keser, She'ein Be'le'achil Le'v'chul, which is above eating. Like it says in the Pasuk, the Ichlu Deidim, Shtu V'shikru Reim, Shtu V'shikru Deidim, that the Midas and Chochma and Bin have to do with drinking and eating and drinking, and Keser is Asrei Lav Urcha Lemechal, which is how you say about Yom Kippur, and the Rebbe says the same thing about Shvi Shal Pesach. Therefore, we're not going to eat matzah lechem ein, the bread of poverty. In other words, we're not going to have to eat, and we're not going to have that infinite niyos. Then we're going to have the gila lakus, which is above eating. Says the Rebbe on line 157, that Shvi Shal Pesach, you don't do any kind of work, even though we know that on Shabbos and on Yom Kippur you're not allowed to do any kind of work. And on Yom Tov and Rosh Hashanah, you're allowed to do work for Eichel Nefesh. Shvi Shal Pesach, you're not going to do even work of Eichel Nefesh. V'lei Melechas Aveda doesn't say you're not allowed to do work for Parnasa, Kidiksiv B'shar, Yomim Tevim, as written by all the other Yomim Tevim. Because by all the other Yomim Tevim, Pesach, besides for Shvi Shal Pesach. And Shavuos and Sukkot is Hut, Rabbi Eichel Nefesh, you're allowed to do work associated with food. Now, when you have the in of Shvi Shal Pesach, how it's going to be when Mashiach comes? You're not going to do any kind of work. Not even going to do the work associated with food. And that's the Maamar. The Maamar is that Shvi Shal Pesach is already the beginning of the Asad Lavi, and the Chumash in Teresh Shabaksav, the Mikra, hints to what's going to be the Simcha Asad Lavi and Shvi Shal Pesach. And of course, if you remember the shir we gave last week, I mentioned to you that the Rebbe, Frierdiker Rebbe, said that by the Rabbeim, the happiest day of the year was Shvi Shal Pesach. And when somebody complained to the Rebbe that he didn't see the Simcha Shvi Shal Pesach, so the Rebbe said, well, did you see the Einig on Shabbos? So if you don't see, doesn't mean it isn't happening. But Shvi Shal Pesach is the ultimate Simcha. It's mamish like Yom Kippur. But now the Rebbe has a kasha. I'm on line 160. And this is the question. In other words, we really learned the Maamar. But there's an outstanding question. The question is, if we accept what our Maamar said, Shvi Shal Pesach is the end of Pesach, and it's the highest and the holiest day, it's a revelation that L'asad Lavi is going to be above Achil and Shti and so forth. What's the question? V'hine. Hagam shabaleiles harishenes shal Pesach neschale bechines meichen degadlos kiyadua. We're making it sound like the greatest day of Pesach is the 7th day. Isn't it true that the first day of Pesach, when the Yidden left Mitzrayim. So at night you had Nogav Mitzrayim v'Rafli Yisrael. And at midday you had Niglalei Melech Macham Locham HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Chveidev Yatzmi Golam. The first day Pesach was the greatest redemption. Hashem revealed himself, took people who had been slaves for 200 years and gave them freedom. Like it says in Maamar Sheshes, it says in Tanya, Baruch Ha'om, we ran away from Egypt because we knew the lights would go out. And when the lights came on, there was a great revelation of the Eibishter which gave us freedom. So why are you making such a big deal out of Shvi'ah Pesach? Isn't it true that the first moments of Pesach were the greatest revelations? And the Rebbe says it's true, it is true, that the revelations of the first day Pesach are equal to these revelations. However, the first day Pesach, Hashem revealed himself in his essence. And the revelations of B'chvei Devayatzmei gave us freedom. But it didn't last. It was bebechines dilog shaleket derech. It was a way of a leap, where there's above nature, and as a consequence, it was unsustainable. Hashem gave us freedom. To use the expression, God took the Jew out of Egypt. But taking the Jew out of Egypt is much easier than taking Egypt out of the Jew. He took us physically out of Egypt. So for a moment, we got this incredible surge of freedom, b'pnimiyas. But subsequent to that, we found ourselves outside of Egypt. We're free people, but we were still slaves. And the Rebbe says, after Yidden left Mitzrayim, there's a whole seder of working on your own animal, which is represented by Sfiras Eimer, which is Michael Behema, and so on. Hayem Yem Rishon Ba'eimer, and so on. Yeah, the first moment of the birth of the Jewish nation was an incredible revelation. But it wasn't sustained. The rest of history is now earning that revelation, is gradually divorcing out of ourselves the Mitzrayim, which we took with us out of Mitzrayim when he gave us that freedom. Ulamashal, for example, you give your friend a gift. Kiss a whole bag full of gold. He gets the whole bag. And he starts to count them one at a time to know what he has. So the initial gift was all the coins at once. And when he starts breaking them down, he has to see what they're worth and what he can do with them and how he can earn them. And only when he's finished does he own all the coins again. So Shvi'ah Pesach is the revelation at the end of Pesach, where the incredible revelation that we happened initially is internalized and earned. And historically, this goes Be'ikir HaMashiach, when we will have deserved the Geula, the freedom the Eibishter gave us on Pesach. So in the way this Maimah breaks down, it's like a klal, prato klal. The first moment Hashem gave us everything. And through history we earn it. And Mashiach comes, we're going to earn it again. It's going to be again an inyan for klal. And that's this Maimah.